Trow. David, welcome to the Beyond Tax Season podcast. Really excited to have you on because of your breadth of experience. Not just the gray hair and the losing the hair, but you've been an accountant for 4 decades?
I guess we could say that since 1969.
And you know your way around not only how to run a practice, but also talking to the people that are the thought leaders. So today, I'd love for you to share with our practice owners that are struggling with all the classic things, right? Pricing, team, technology, um, what else? The right clients. How do I exit my firm? How do I create value in my firm? So with that kind of foundation, would you please tell our listeners what your path has been and what you think the path will be or should be for them?
Okay, great question. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And by the way, it's never beyond tax season because tax season goes on forever. There's always an extension. There's always a local compliance, and there's always something that's got to be corrected. So beyond tax season never exists, and that's why this is a great business, and that's why, well, let's call it a business, a profession, an industry. Everyone's got a different name for it. But if you're a young entrepreneur and you like the idea of helping other people improve their businesses, and you like the idea of helping other people become more liquid, solvent, and profitable, uh, it's a great business for you to become an accountant entrepreneur. Actually, nobody, including myself, really likes to do the bookkeeping or the write-up work, and that could all be automated today. But if you're in this business today or going into this business, the technology today allows you to employ processes that automate all of those tedious tasks that you did before. So it's a great opportunity for someone who has an accounting background, particularly if you're small and just starting out, because what you want to do is you want to market yourself to a particular niche group that you want to help. You want to build up some clients, and then you want to build value and recurring revenue from there. Actually, I was just looking at the latest issue of Accounting Today, and it actually says the top niche service that accountants perform today is basically what small accountants, small CPAs, small bookkeepers, call yourself what you want, but the top service out here in Accounting Today's last issue, percentage of their firms increasing the business with these service areas. Of the 86 firms responding, CAS BPO, client accounting services, business process, offset,
Outsourcing.
outsourcing. So every small business needs someone to help them set up. Everyone needs the process to be. But then you have technology, and then you have state and local taxes, which is compliance. And I could go into the different niches, the different other things that are out there. But it's a great time to be an accountant. But it comes down to three things as far as I'm concerned. It comes down to marketing and advertising yourself, using the technology, and putting the processes in place for your clients. It's all about building a winning playbook and be consistent with it. You don't need 10,000 clients. You don't need 800 clients. You could just do taxes. And as much as people say taxes is going away, it's going to be totally automated, they still want to talk to a live person. And if you could market yourself as a business advisor, consultant to help the people achieve their dreams, and that's really the big thing. If you're really going to be a good entrepreneur, accountant, CPA, you got to be a little bit of a salesperson. You got to sit down with the people and ask them what their goals are and what they want to achieve. You don't have to tell them what you can do for them. You want to ask them what they need and then see if you can solve their problems.
Those are so spot on, yet I find it's tough to market. It's tough to get processes and consistency. And even more so, it's tough to ask the questions about dreams and work it back. So you make it sound so easy. How can we make marketing easy for folks? What's an easy way to market?
Well, again, when we talk about marketing, it depends on what type of marketing. When I started off, and anybody can do this today, simple little marketing is go to a local real estate group and say you want to speak to the realtors, be a speaker. Go to some school teachers and speak at a school teacher event and tell them how you can help them. Uh, Go to a local business meeting, a local chamber of commerce meeting. Just get yourself in front of a few people and get a few recommendations and get those people to help you and then work your way up. You could say, put something on Facebook, put something on LinkedIn, put something on Twitter. I'm out there. I've got a lot of followers on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I've done some Instagram, but I'm at the other stage of the game. But I read something and immediately I put it out on LinkedIn or Twitter if I think it's important. I'm not selling myself. I'm educating people. It's more about educating people. So there was something in, I think it was Yahoo Finance the other day on when did the new tax rules take effect and what do they mean? I posted it up on LinkedIn and Twitter. Immediately I had X hundred impressions and people with comments on it. You know, then you got to follow up on some of this, but really, it doesn't have to be big to market. I'm not using the word advertising. Marketing is just exposing yourself to people, and it doesn't cost much, and you got to start with it.
Got it. Now, and then again, just this morning, I had a meeting where I was guiding a blended team. A client of mine bought a firm, and the cultures and the different systems that exist. It's tough because people have that hard time changing, right?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things in this profession is changing software. Uh, I've done it as a solo practitioner because it's easier. The larger the firm, the more difficult it is to change software. You take a
Mm,
top 500 firm or a top 50 person firm, they've integrated all of these processes. So it's not easy to change tax software because they've built their CRM into it. They built their building into it, their billing into it. When I change my tax software, I'm not worried about some other things because I don't have a sophisticated billing system. So I've seen that a lot of inexpensive tax software products can do the same as the high expensive ones for my type of clients. I've worked with, you name a tax software that's been out there in the last 25 years, from the
Thomson,
most expensive to
Thomson,
the least expensive, and I've used it.
Thomson Reuters.
I've used Thompson, I've used Created Solution. I've used, originally, I actually worked for the company that Thompson bought, FastTax.
Hmm.
FastTax CLR, Computer Language Research, was the one that was doing all the big. And then actually, the Go system is still being used by Thompson to do corporate returns because the system was so sophisticated. To change it, you'll screw up things. They change a lot of it, but they've added new products. So
Ah,
Thomson Reuters, CCH, Walters Clore, Lacert, Drake,
right.
uh, A
So,
plus tax, pencil pushers. I'm old.
well, walk me through the dreams conversation. Help our listeners understand the power of the right questions.
Well, let's pretend we meet at a party. If I'm going to walk through it, and what do you always say at a party? You always ask somebody, "What do they do?" And if you say you're an accountant, they say to you back, well, maybe I can ask you a few questions. Or how do you save people? They say to me, how do you save people money in taxes? Well, instead of me answering that question, what are you looking to do? I always drive it back. So to drive a conversation, it's not me asking the questions, it's me getting the other person to ask me questions.
That, David, that is the skill that more and more accountants need to understand, because the progression is, one, it's the last trusted advisor, and they're kind of put on a pedestal of omniscience. And so anytime you ask them a question, it's almost like they say, well, I'm supposed to know the answer. And even if they do, I think it's best if they don't share the answer. They do just what you said, and that is flip it so that you can be in the position to ask them about their business and get, so okay, you flipped it. You've asked them, what are they trying to do? How do you take it from there?
Well, I try to get a couple of things, what they're trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish, how they're trying to do it, what their resources. And then I'll ask a couple of questions back, like, okay, you're starting a business. Well, let's pretend, I'm going to pretend it's a business client, or do you want me to pretend it's a non-business client? There's two sets of questions. If it's someone with business, my first question is, do you have a business plan? Do you have a mission statement? Do you have a vision?
I remember that when we first talked, and that is so key to have a. So, what is a business plan in at that level of conversation? What would you expect them to? What's the best answer you've ever gotten? Say it that way.
The best answer I've gotten is I have a written plan with what my 2 year goal is and what my 3 year goal is, what my sales are going to be. Most of the time I get, well, I have a vague idea of I want to sell this. Well, do you have an idea what your price point is? Do you know what your gross margin is? Uh, and the answers are I know. But actually, at this time in life, if I were a professional association of small business accountants looking to put something in place, I'd probably go to Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever you want to call it, whichever one it is, and say, help me write a business plan for my small accounting firm that I want to start. I think that's the first thing I do today if I was a young professional. Uh, you know, and then I'd play with it and massage it. And you'd come up, what marketing plan, what target market should I go after? What are the obvious clients that are out there for CPAs or accountants? Should I go here? And the typical answer, if you're starting a small business today as an accountant, is go after clients who are a service business. Don't go after inventory. Start to keep it simple. You want inventory, you want to be in the restaurant business, go into the restaurant business. That's fine. But the easiest clients to pick off right now are real estate, legal, insurance, service type businesses where you don't have to deal with complex accounting needs, if that makes sense.
So it makes perfect sense. The issue is the audience for this podcast is mostly that $1 million, $2 million firm. They've got success, they've got momentum, they've got a team, they've got processes, they've got good clients and bad clients. How do they go from here to no longer being the bottleneck in their business, to having clients that they love dealing with, being unchained from their desk and getting their life back while growing their firm and their team and their firm value? How would that firm best go forward today?
Okay, you're saying they're already $1 million firm.
Right.
So I'm assuming they have their business plan out there already.
Uh, you're putting that's your lens, because you know how powerful it is. I've yet to meet an accounting firm with a business plan.
Okay, so what they got to do is if they're in their $1 million practice, they're there already. They got to go take a break and examine internally their types of clients they have, the niches they're in, the realization rates, the profit rates, the billings. And again, if I bend over here now, and not that I was going to put the microphone on it to make it higher because he told me it'd be higher. And I read all the time. Here's a great book, Time's Up, the subscription business model for professional firms. I don't know if you've read that, Ron Baker.
That's one of the classics.
Okay, no, Ron. I got something here. This is one of my favorites, an all-time person's not in the business per se. Edie Osborne. She had a program called Mentor Plus, greatest consulting program that I've taken. Took it 3 times. Once by the AICPA, once by her, once online. You know, I
Well,
can read all these books. Client Accounting
oh
Services.
yeah, yeah, that's Hitender Patel's. Let's go back to the one you took 3 times. What were the core principles there that you found so useful?
It was all about being a level 5 accountant. And before AICPA and anybody started talking about CAS, Client Accounting Service, level 5 is all about advisory services. Moving from your traditional level 1 accounting, which is compliance work, to doing consulting. And she had all the Excel spreadsheets where you can plug in, well, if we change this number over here, look what it does to your gross profit over here. So she made it easy to help you do consulting. Like a couple of examples that Edie had out there. Actually, Jeannie Whitehouse is running that program now, by the way, Edie's program. I don't know if you know Jeannie Whitehouse.
I haven't met her yet.
Okay, she calls us, I forget what type of accountant, insightful or whatever. But she's got the program that she got it from Edie Osborne. They were friends. So she's doing that now. But like walking into a business, they changed, and this is where they came from. Instead of calling you the receptionist, they were the director of first impressions when you walk into the accounting office. How many phone calls? How many phone calls are answered? These are all the different type of questions from going from a level 1 accountant to what we now call CAAS, Client Accounting and Advisory Services. And there's different things that comes from all these different things, and that's really what it's about. But if you're a
Yeah,
$1 million practice, what you really should be offering is virtual CFO services, traditional accounting, and there's lots of websites. I don't know if you want me to mention websites, but
I want this to be as real and useful as possible to anybody that listens at any point along the way. Let's share it all.
okay. Well, in sharing, you talk about marketing. One of my favorite websites used to be Summit CPAs. I don't know if you're familiar with Summit.
Yes.
Okay, he built his practice to a $5 million practice, sold it to Anders CPA.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
He and what was his partner in crime's name?
I'm just at a loss right now. I've worked with him in the past.
Adam something. Adam
Uh,
Hale. Adam Hale. Yeah. Oh, they were the leaders in virtuality. They were the leaders in niche. They had a practice that was totally around tech startups. And even if the tech startup was across the street, they didn't meet with them face to face. So that was Jody. I forget what Jody's last name is. And Adam Hale. You're right. They had, well, they were so intentional. I think that's the, but here again, we're coming down to special people. How do we get?
Yeah, but if you look at their website, and that's what I used to have people look at their website, to see how they put out there the information that they did, how to choose somebody. You look at their website, that's perfect marketing about what people should be doing about accounting.
Got it.
You can bring it up if you want. We can talk about it. But
We'll
they got their mission
let,
statement, they got their vision, they got what type of services they're being offered. That's the playbook to copy.
got it. Got it. So yeah, they were Jody Grunden.
Right, yeah,
Grunden.
Jerry Gruden.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
apologize for forgetting his name. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I had him on a podcast a couple of times, and I've watched others do this also. He wasn't the first, but he was one of the better ones, and he built this practice. And if you just go out to his site, that's a cookie cutter site to look at. Actually, if you go out there and go Summit CPA Tech Stack, his tech stack, he let other people, he let me use it in presentations. This is the tech stack that I used, and this is why I use it. It doesn't mean it's the ideal tech stack because everybody else has their tech stacks too, and things change. But when you look about at his website, it's like, hey, I think I'm going to go with this accounting firm. They got all these different choices, and they explaining to me what a one. And a lot of his stuff is copied out of other Forbes or what. And I don't mean it in a negative. He had some good stuff about statistics that come from small business websites, etc.
Right. Well, and so marketing process, business advisor by asking for their dreams and what's their business plan. How about pricing? Pricing is a nettlesome issue.
It's pricing is a nettlesome issue if you make it. And that goes back to Ron Baker. You want to charge value. Actually, I just read on the web, I think it was Deloitte or maybe Price. They said they're using AI to keep their costs down. And then they got some backlash because the client said, if you're keeping your costs down, lower our costs. They turned around and they changed. They're using AI to give better service now. They changed, rather than saying they're reducing their costs through AI.
Right, right.
As an example of marketing, and then correcting marketing. Pricing comes down to, charging a fair value for valuable services. It used to take me a long time to do research and look up answers. Now it's generally a matter of minutes. It used to be long because you'd go into one set of regs and then into rules, but now it all comes together. So it's a different ballgame. So you really got to figure out what your costs are and go from there.
Ah, I would, you have to know that, but you can't price off of it.
Right. But you got to know what your costs are in order to figure out what you want to do to charge for value.
Those are two different things.
They're two different things, and that's why people don't today say we don't need a timesheet.
No, you need the timesheet because that's essentially your inventory. You need to know what your inventory costs you.
Well, I think you're gonna find a school of thought from different accountants here about whether you need a timesheet or someone's bringing you in a large load of cash that exceeds the cost of the job.
Well, you needed to know your costs.
Well, yeah, that's what I say. You need to know your costs. But
Yeah. Don't price off of it, but you need to know it.
right,
It's still a business. Okay, so again, pricing and the advisory are the things. All of these are hard. The
nothing's easy if you want to make a large business. There's nothing easy, but it's all part of the process that you go through to take your business from your $1 million business to your $5 million business.
okay,
And
let's
people get stuck at a certain point because you've reached your maximum capacity based on your past habits. Somewhere along the line, this is where it's always good to bring in someone like you or an outside consultant to say, you're doing great here, but let's take a look at these processes. And if you change these processes a little bit more, it would free up more time for you to develop more business, or it would free up more time for your people if they change these processes in order to go out and get 10 more new clients or 20 more new clients. Everyone says they're at capacity. I got more work to do than I know how to handle it. I can't find people. There's always people to find. It's just, where do you want to find them, number one? And number two, there's technology out there today that didn't exist 2 years ago, more or less than 20 years ago.
okay. So we got marketing. Get out and talk to people. And when you talk to people, ask them about their dreams and back to their business plan, we've got pricing for value, which is still a squishy topic. Which value? My value, their value, how do we calculate it? How do I stick to my guns and demand it or say, that was, thanks a lot, but we're not a fit? Something we haven't talked about is team. You talked a little bit about it, but without a team of A players, I coach my clients to relax and wait until you find them, because otherwise you're dragging that sled like at the county fair, the tractor pull. It can only go so far without A players. So where do you find, how do you attract A players in today's world?
Well, for me, I might go out on Reddit now and find A players. Because I read a lot of this. I'm following a lot of the social networks out there. What people are saying. You meet people at networking events. You meet people all over. You could put something out on LinkedIn. You could put something out on Indeed. You can put something out on Facebook. You meet people all over. But the first question is, what type of players do you want? You got to put people, which is the one you got to put people on the bus and put them in the right seat.
Oh, I could bring up that image. It's Jim Collins from
Right. Jim Collins, good, good to
good,
great.
good
You
to great.
know, there's lots of people out there. Where are they? That's up to you. I think now the world is open for anywhere, especially with a virtual CPA firm.
Yep, yep.
And
So
a lot of it coming to me comes down to gut. When I got my first big accounting job, I went through a battery of tests, a psychological profile, and so did everybody else. But that didn't mean everybody ended up lasting more than a month. I lasted 10 years at my first place, or 9 years, whatever it was I chose to be
where
there.
did you get started? Big eight or a regional firm or a local
No,
firm?
actually, the large tax processor, computer language research,
Okay,
gas tax originally.
okay.
When I got I like to do accounting on my own, but I like selling and helping other people more. So I've been more on that side of the practice. On that, but that was a whole set of psychological tests, which was unbelievable in those days in the early '80s.
Well, okay, so we touched marketing process, business advisor helping business owners get to their dreams, pricing for value, and how to build a team of A players. I don't think we've given anybody any concrete paths. We've highlighted the importance, but how it's, I guess it's just a nettlesome issue. Let's move on and talk about AI. I just listened to Peter Diamandis interview Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, I believe. Um, and Eric is out talking about superintelligence and how close we are to artificial superintelligence. And what will that mean? Not only in terms of electricity demand and needing nuclear reactors. I mean, Amazon and Google are out buying or starting to build nuclear reactors because they understand the power they'll need for their server farms. But where do you see the human part of leveraging AI to serve business owner clients achieve their dreams?
Well, sort of like you and I are talking right here. We don't have to be here. We can let AI talk to each other. But everybody likes to talk to a human. So AI is going to do, let's be honest, the bulk of the work. Look at it. Look at medicine today. When they're doing surgery now, microscopic surgery and robotic surgery, there's still a human being on the other end of that microscope. Same thing in accounting. I truly think that everything is going to be automated in the bookkeeping and accounting process, from transaction to general ledger. Has to be, just based on what goes on. Does it make it right? No. So
Yeah, okay,
that's
so
where you have AI come and look and see if something's wrong, but you
well,
still, I'll
let,
be quiet.
let's cross-pollinate the classic general ledger P&L chart of accounts with some of the wisdom from Greg Crabtree in his book Simple Numbers and Simple Numbers 2.0, where he basically moves away from GAAP and moves to matching cost centers, matching capital, matching labor into the reporting so that a business owner can understand whether or not this initiative paid off. Essentially coming back to the return on invested capital and what is your labor efficiency ratio, both at the direct and the managerial level. I mean, that we could build systems. Greg has built it. He's doing the consulting and selling that service, but that's something that does take some nuance for a right now it's a person to ask the questions, understand the business model, and construct reports that are useful. Because what do clients mostly do with their quarterly or monthly balance sheet or P&L?
They throw it in the drawer and never look at it. But you just use you just use my magic words. My favorite course to teach right now is managerial accounting, and that's what the future is all about. We use the word GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, because there are rules to how you put things together. The information is there, but it doesn't mean people aren't tearing them apart through managerial accounting, looking at a return on investments, looking what's going on. And that's what the future really, and AI does that also. It'll give you your ratios. But as you sit down with the client and explain to them, hey, look at this trend here. We can probably make some changes here. Let's play around with this. You got some excess capacity, it says in your building here. Should you expand and buy more equipment and do more manufacturing? Or should you lease the space out? What's going to give you a better return on your investment? Or should you be overseas, or should you be in California, or whatever the case may be? It all truly is about managerial accounting. AI, you know, we look at all these movies when 20 years ago we looked at movies of what the future is all about. Even when the Jetsons came out with the flying machine and newspapers on TV and, talking Zoom meetings per se, didn't exist then,
Rosie the robot.
right? It's all there. It's not going to go away. So I think that's a higher level discussion for socioeconomic, political, as to how people are going to utilize their time, whether it is universal income, et cetera, somewhere down the line, because people are going to be working less than 5 days a week. It's just, again, depending on the profession, the occupation, what it is. And now what is it? Walmart and Amazon, what are they delivering? By drones in certain areas now? So changing the delivery. Waymo. I was out in California in Santa Monica, and the little robot machine is walking down the street delivering food without people. Jobs you don't think would go away, go away.
Okay, so that touched on AI. Uh, Pascal Bonnet, I believe is his name, a leader in AI research and implementation, has already said, look, okay, not everybody, still some people still don't know what ChatGPT is. Can you believe that? But the next wave is agentic AI, so that instead of just getting good answers, they actually take the answers and meld it into doing the work. So that's all coming.
And it's here now in some spots. I think I read in accounting today that Deloitte is using it to discover fraud in audits now. They just did it and they just engage it. I read account. I don't know if you follow accounting today.
Accounting Today,
CPA Trendline, CPA Practice Advisor. I read all the free ones, all the paid ones, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so the future is bright for whom?
The future is bright for those who want to pursue the future, and it doesn't matter whether it's accounting or another field.
If we're
The
talking to
future is
account,
bright for those who are go getters and are motivated to say, this is, you got to follow your dream, but you really got to stick to a plan to be successful. So, if you want to do accounting, and I've encouraged a lot of my students, and every once in a while I'll get like 5 years or 6 years later, hey, you taught me in the right profession. I'm doing this, and I'm so happy. I'm doing it for myself, or whatever the case may be, or I'm doing it for somebody else. I think there's always a need for people in the accounting space. Again, I'm not using the word bookkeeping, but a bookkeeper does accounting also. Again, accounting is a process of recording, sorting, and summarizing data to permit informed decisions by the end user. That's what accounting is. But
I
most of
got it.
that's bookkeeping. It's
I got
what the end
it.
user does with that information
I,
that gives us the opportunity to charge for value.
let's wrap up with almost, I'm going to ask you to almost repeat because it was such a great ending line. What is the best way for someone to utilize one, the accounting profession, and two, the resources that they bring to the party, be it their talents, their team, their clientele? How and who do they get their best future?
I'm not sure I 100% follow, but I think you're asking me, how does someone achieve success in this profession?
Yes.
Look, look to the trade publications to see who's been successful. Look online, like we mentioned, Jody Gruden. You know, they're all case studies about all of these people. Look to some of these books that Ron Baker has written, has written. Uh, to me, there's nothing new in accounting. We've all been pursuing the same dream for the last 40 years. Let's automate the process of getting the data together and being able to file the compliance work. And let's spend time advising our clients how to make more money by doing advisory services.
Excellent. Excellent. David, I think one, we'll wrap it up there. And thank you very much for your wisdom. I look forward to a continued conversation and association because
And if I can help you anywhere, please let me know.
yep, that's what we're wrapping up here. I look forward to continuing. So let's go ahead and make it a clean cut of David. Thanks very much for helping our audience understand more about what you see and what the best path forward in the accounting profession, industry, business. Cut. So now that we're kind of off the tape, I don't think I'm going to take this to my video guy and he's going to chop it up and hopefully give us good stuff. I really think that the quote before I prompted you to say it again was the best. You said something about dreams or help business owners achieve their dreams. I think that's really going to be probably the punchline out of this podcast. But
Now, you
yeah,
got $1 million businesses, they're already there. They just got to spend the time and cull their client list, get rid of their D clients, get more A clients, and build a better team.
that sounds so easy, doesn't it?